Good morning. It's Monday morning, August 25th. Welcome to the Commission committee meeting. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones so we don't interrupt each other. And if you would, stand with me and I'll lead the invocation and Commissioner Cole will lead the pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and we thank you for the privilege of joining together as free men and women to decide our own governmental issues. Pray that you'll watch over and guide this body and those in attendance. I pray that all that is said and done here will meet your approval, and we ask this in the name of Jesus and for his sake. Amen.
Please join me in pledging our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start on the right with Commissioner Williamson. Do you have any additions to the agenda?
I have no additions, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salter?
No additions, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole?
No additions, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lynch?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Walker?
Mr. Chairman, I have one, and the addition of the license agreement with the property owner at 2635 Venetian Way for the erosion, the drainage blowout that we had as a result of the April flooding. And we just need to approve that license agreement.
Okay. We'll add that as item number 13 to the agenda.
Thank you.
No additions.
Mr. Blaylock?
No addition.
Okay. I have one change. If you would direct your attention, please, to Engineers Report item number 3. In the backup, I know the public can't see this, but there's the gross vehicle weight is 10,000 pounds. That should read 15,000 pounds. I'd like to make that pen and ink change at this time, if that meets the pleasure of the board. We had discussed protecting the small haulers in the county, and the small haulers are operating 9,500-pound trucks, and the gross vehicle weight, or GVW, of those trucks is 14,500 pounds. So we just need to make that pen and ink change. If you would, change 10,000 to 15,000. Okay. Ms. Bell? Tony? Anybody over there? Okay. Economic Development, Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I have one item with two parts to it. First one is discussion of acquisition of conservation easement on following two parcels adjacent to NS Whiting Field in an ongoing base buffering program funded by Florida Defense Initiative grant and U.S. Navy REPI funds. First parcel is a 20-acre parcel owned by Ray and Sarah Riley with an appraised value of $26,000. Number two is 41.78 acre parcel owned by Mark Reinhardt with an appraised value of $104,000. Here again, that'd be paid for by REPI funds and our Florida Defense, and these are willing sellers. Any questions? Hearing none, I would recommend moving this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it's moved to Thursday.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Next up is Administrative Committee. We have 13 items. And item number 13, let me make a note before I forget, it's that flood repair. Item number 1 is discussion of the funding of a local portion of the Navarre Beach Renourishment Project. We've been discussing this for quite some time, and it's a critical issue. This is a statewide issue, not a Santa Rosa County issue. I'll open that up to discussion. Mr. Walker, you want to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in your packet is my memo and a proposed resolution from the county attorney. We have submitted the grant application for the beach renourishment to the FDEP. It's under review. They've asked us for more specific language regarding the commitment, if you will, of the local share or the non-state share is a better way to put it instead of a local share. And you see my memo outlining the process, or more or less the proportion that we had done previously. What we would recommend doing, at least as far as getting the maximum number of points for the application that needs to be submitted by September 1, would be the resolution that Mr. Andrews developed regarding pledging a portion of the undesignated or unrestricted fund balance, restricting that for Navarre Beach renourishment. That gives us a year. There's going to be another year plus before the project would be done, assuming state approval, and that gives the board time to kind of determine how you want to comprise that non-state share. You know, you've already enacted the 1 penny on the on the bed tax that gins up about $300,000. Of course, over an 8-year project, that's going to be $2.4 million. There's a FEMA component to this. There's obviously the large state component, and then we can determine between the board and the leaseholders how you want to allocate those costs. But this would in our judgment would enable us to get the maximum number of points as the FDEP staff is scoring the projects.
And we may have some help on the horizon. I spoke with the governor about 4 weeks ago now on this very subject, and asked him to consider setting up a statewide fund for beach renourishment, a pool for the counties on the Gulf and a pool for the counties on the other coast to assist, because tourism is a Florida industry. It's not just a Santa Rosa County industry, and the state certainly has an interest in it. And with the multi-billion-dollar surplus the state has, he seemed favorably disposed to discuss that further. So hopefully that'll turn into something. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection, unless there's conversation from the rest of the board. Hearing none, this moves to Thursday without objection. Item number 2, this discussion of a draft letter to Congressman Miller and Senators Nelson and Rubio regarding federal legislation allowing fee simple title on Santa Rosa Island. The backup, the details are in the backup. Copy of the letter. Open this up to the board for discussion. Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the letter as drafted. I spoke with Ed as this was all being put together. We've been in contact about this for the last, I don't know how many months, or coming up years even. But I think this is acceptable to the county. The amendments are those that are going to be required if we have any hope of getting this pushed through Congress and the Senate, and then getting signed. So I would support the letter as written.
Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to go on record of thanking Ed Graber and Associates for their lobbying efforts on this, and being able to arrange a meeting when I was in Washington a year ago with Senator Rubio's office, because up until then we weren't getting much traction with Senator Nelson. So Senator Rubio came on board with us and matched a companion bill for Congressman Miller, got us moving on that. So I appreciate all the efforts up there from Graber. Thank you.
Anybody else? It's no secret that I'm a big advocate of the pass, and it disappoints me that we're not, that this contains language that says we'll never get one. But part of the loaf is better than none of the loaf at all, and this is critical. Yes, sir, Commissioner Lyncher.
Mr. Chairman, the language regarding the pass is in Amendment 2, and that's the one that we are not supporting. We're not supporting the language that was promulgated or proffered by I believe it was Senator Nelson's office to eliminate the possibility of a pass in the future.
Yes, sir.
That language is not being supported by either Escambia County or Santa Rosa County.
I understand that, but I also understand that the fellow that wrote this draft did so at the behest of the Interior Department. And that was the only way that the Interior Department is going to entertain this at all. And that is a deal stopper for the Interior Department. And it was made very clear to me in a personal conversation with Mr. Dan Brown of the National Seashore, who's the man that drafted the majority of this, that was an absolute deal stopper. That support it, don't support it. The Department of Interior will not support a pass, period. Okay, I move this to Thursday without objection. Yes, sir. Sorry, didn't notice you. Name and address, please. Robert, you got to turn the light on.
Robert Coley, 8271 Gulf Boulevard. I realize, I appreciate what y'all are trying to do to get the bill moving forward in Congress, and that's certainly the final answer. In the meantime, people on the beach are still having to pay lease fees. They're coming in the mail, and they're calling us, asking us, should they pay them or not? And we said, well, at this point, you're still obligated to pay them. So is there something y'all can do short-term until this bill passes to go ahead and give these folks relief, not have to pay
Yes,
property
sir.
taxes and lease fees?
Yes, sir. And we've been discussing that for the last couple of months. And we'll take care of that as soon as the attorneys tell us the way is clear to do so. We will see if we can't enact some ordinance that will, for those who have paid their taxes, who are current, to drop their lease fee to $1 a year until such time as we can get them a fee simple. And this board is very aware of that, and we're working toward that goal. There were some complicating issues starting that before all the other legal issues were solved. So that's what the delay is. All right. I recommend we move item number 2 to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 3 is discussion of a request from Northwest Florida Marine Education and Discovery of Gulf Ecosystems Incorporated for actions associated with location of the reef cam on Pavilion number 2 at Navarre Beach. Mr. Blaylock, are you briefing this one?
In your packet is the letter from Ms. Morrow, and I believe she's got a PowerPoint presentation on this particular.
Okay.
Yeah. They had presented the concept, and now they're here with the details today.
Yeah. Turn your light on, please, so there you go.
Charlene Morrow, 2786 Grand Bay Court, Navarre. I don't have a clicker, by the way. Is there a clicker? Okay, great, thank you. Great. I'm here to discuss the Beach Watch the Reef webcam, and I want to just touch on our nonprofit, Northwest Florida Marine Edge. It's actually a supporting nonprofit for the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. Click. All right. Some goals of Northwest Florida Marine Edge is to brand Navarre Beach as a destination for ecotourism, provide events for out-of-town guests and also residents, and promote research and education through partnerships. We've already established some with University of West Florida and Pensacola State College, and expand program at the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. In May, you guys voted to recommend the funding of the webcam, and the webcam video camera has water quality nodes, and it's going to be placed near the Gulfside reefs. And that's a picture of the Watch the Reef TV. It's one of 9 in the world. Okay. And what we propose to do is provide this webcam and visual for people that can't necessarily snorkel or dive the reefs. And it's also to lead to off-season programming, and it would help market Santa Rosa County, Navarre Beach, and also the scientific nodes for salinity, temperature, and turbidity. We're also looking at other scientific nodes, and that information could be live fed to a central area where people can look at the water quality on the Gulf side, also comparing it to the sound side readings. This would be the first live feed webcam in the Gulf of Mexico, and it would be streamed through the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station's website. Another partnership that we have is with Gulf Coast Ocean Observation System, and that program will allow for data to be in a repository for other people to see. And these are some pictures of the artificial reefs. As you know, there have been some sea turtles, and I wanted to show you some other ones, some triggerfish. And also, this is a coco adult, a damselfish, and also juvenile. One of the other projects that we're doing and for off-season programming at the Science Station is with the Reef Environmental Education Foundation, actually identifying the fish and invertebrates on the reef to get some baseline data to see what's changing throughout the years. And what I've done is we have Mike Dombrowski with MRD Engineering, and he's going to talk about the technical part of the Watch the Reef camera and also placement of the camera.
Good morning. My name is Mike Dombrowski, MRD Associates, 543 Harbor Boulevard, Destin, Florida. We were asked to look at the actual structure itself, to look at how would it survive during different storm events. Now the camera was going to be underwater as you saw in the picture, but in terms of transmitting the signal to the land, that the initial design looked at putting it up on a pile with a transmitter, solar panel on top of it. And we looked at the different storm events and decided that in order to withstand a storm of a really minor magnitude of roughly about a 20-year storm event, which was less than a tropical storm, the piling to the bottom of the solar panel and the transmitter had to be about 12 feet above the water line, and then the rest of the instrumentation would have to be about another 6 to 7. So we would have been almost 20 feet above the existing water line as it stands. And then the pile would have had to been about 40 feet into the ground to withstand those wave forces. It turned out that it was very cost prohibitive. So we started looking at different options. One of the other issues is that, well, you could go out and take the instrumentation off, but as you all know, as a storm starts coming in, that's the last thing you probably want to worry about, is going out in the water and taking instruments from a piling. We do a lot of, not only with coastal engineering, but we also do a lot of instrumentation, deployment, and analysis. So we started working with the Marine Center and also True Blue, who is the developer of the camera, and decided that the best way of transmitting that signal from the camera to the shoreline was through a hard cable. And basically what happens is that you connect it to the camera underwater, and you run that cable to the shoreline. This is an image. Basically the gray box to the lower left-hand corner is the approximate location of that reef. It's about 410 feet from the existing shoreline. Further north, where it says DEP Range Monument 203, a little bit further to the north of there, is the gazebo and the bathrooms, which we propose in tying it into. So what we would do is to lay the cable from the camera offshore to the shoreline, and then we would dig a trench or bore and jack it underneath the sand to a depth that it would be below an eroded profile during a storm event, so it doesn't become exposed. One of the things that we found over the years is that through wave action and currents, that cable actually starts to sink even further and further into the ground, into the beach, so that it wouldn't become exposed and providing a liability or a safety issue for the county. And then it would be actually installed underneath the dune. Now, the upper left-hand photo is the beginning of the dune. It would actually go underneath the dune. To the right is a shot that goes along the boardwalk, and we would either continue on burying it to the gazebo, or we would attach it to the bottom of the dune walkover through conduit. And then it would end off, we would have some connectors that if anything did happen to the offshore wire, that we can replace that over time. The lower left-hand photo, you can see that on the left-hand side is that bathhouse, that in about the middle of it, there is a power panel that we can tie into, and then we would put an antenna on the top of it that we then can transmit. Matter of fact, in the back, you could kind of see the water tower, and that's roughly in the location of where the Marine Center is. Of course, a lot closer. Next slide. Thank you, Roger. What we are requesting from the board today is that the Santa Rosa County serves as the applicant, because this is a county park, and you do own that, allowing us to install that buried cable to that second pavilion, and then to install electric box and antenna on top of that pavilion structure at the Marine Park. And that is all we have, and we are certainly open to questions and answers, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the presentation. I have a question for you, and then we'll open it up to the others.
Yes, sir.
This is very near and dear to my heart. I love this project, but I have a couple of questions for you. You said that the piling and the solar arrays, instrumentation, et cetera, on a pile was more expensive than jacking and boring and laying the cable in the Gulf of Mexico. Do you have dollar values to compare? What are we talking about? How much difference are we talking about?
We have not gotten a price for the cable yet, but based on our experience, we're probably looking at less than $10,000 for the cable itself. Mm-hmm. For the piling, the installation, for the solar panel, I believe it was about
15 for the actual solar panel on the camera.
Come up to the microphone so that you get on
and
the
then
record.
for the 15 for the solar panel, but to install the piling and to supply it, that was about another $30,000 to $40,000.
Right, and the increase, and that's why we had to step back and look at this option, because our budget came about $21,000 over using the large piling with solar.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an electrician. I don't even change the batteries in my flashlight. I'm afraid of that stuff. But how are you, I don't understand running the cable from the land into the Gulf of Mexico. I guess, Commissioner Williamson, you're the electrician on the crowd.
I can honestly say that I've never had to run any cables in the Gulf of Mexico, so that wouldn't be my area of expertise either. But I mean, I'm sure that this stuff it's been done around the world, so there's certain, and that's probably why the cost is so high on some of it. The cable was a special cable that they're going to be able to run, and it's all designed for this application, I would imagine.
Yes, I mean, there is an actual galvanized cable that gives it strength. It's all an insulated cable. We've deployed them up to, I think, 6,000 feet, and for an extended period of time of 3 to 5 years. So they do last, and like I said, as soon as the wave action does start burying them, and then we're able to stream the signal from the camera and also supply the camera with power.
Anybody else have a question?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alter.
I have buried cable. You have to dig it in to the bottom of the floor of where you're installing it. My question was going to be, what is the distance in the $10,000 for the cable? Does that include boring it, digging it in?
It does not. We have not looked at the price of that. Jack and boring is an option to it. The other option, which we're more familiar with, is just laying it on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico and then trenching it up the beach. That would end off being anything between 4 and 6 feet below, and then bringing it up through the dune. But we have not actually looked at the price of boring jacking it, but it is an option.
Okay. When you start plowing it in, and that's the correct term, it gets expensive, so just beware.
Okay, thank you,
Well,
sir.
I don't think we've got enough data right now I mean, if you don't know what that option's going to cost as compared to the piling, how long will it take you to put those numbers together? Can you get back to us this coming Thursday with these numbers?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, I think it's important that we do this, we check it out. We're talking about spending public's money. We need to know, which is the most desirable way, and the most cost-efficient way. If you can get those numbers to us Thursday, we'll move this to Thursday for further consideration pending your numbers. Commissioner Cole, you were waiting for comment?
Yes, sir. I agree. I'd like to see what the cost would be, but I liked what I seem to hear you say about conduiting across the walkway versus jack and bore through the dunes. I think there'd be a cost savings there versus the dunes, and then trenching it across the beach and then just simply laying it on the bottom. I think the natural action would, like you say, it would cover it in a short period of time. So
Yes.
I'd like to see you work out maybe the most cost-effective way to.
Yes, so would we.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll move this to Thursday with the stipulation that we get numbers so that we can evaluate those options, and then we can finalize this or put it off if we don't have enough information.
No, we'll have it to you.
All
Thank
right,
you,
sir, thank you. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 4 is discussion of a waiver of permitting fees for construction of residence for disabled veterans by Homes of Our Troops Incorporated at 8656 Tupelo Drive in Navarre. And this is an absolutely wonderful project. It's a volunteer project. It's a national fundraising deal that puts together the construction dollars, and the services are donated. The contractor in this particular case is from Okaloosa County, but he has a big heart for our wounded veterans, and he approached me with a question as whether or not Santa Rosa County could waive the fees, the permitting fees for this home, and I told him I'd certainly be willing to discuss that with the board. So that's what this is about, and I would further suggest we might even entertain a policy so others don't have to go through this. Commissioner Cole?
Yes, sir. I would agree with that. I'd ask Commissioner Salter, how did we do the last one we did?
Mr. Chairman, in the past, when we've done homes like this, on the individual basis, we waive the fees. We had at one time talked about coming up with a policy that would address disabled veteran permits and those types of things. So, but in the past, we've handled it on an individual basis. That's what I would recommend for this one. And then we'll have further discussion about potentially creating a policy.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
While we're on the subject of our veterans, it came to my attention over the weekend that our national parks allow our veterans and more so our active duty military to go into our national parks just via their military ID card. But our state parks, they require them to charge. And I know we weren't prepared for this today, but I'd like to throw it out there for the board that we approach our state legislature and our governor about doing the same thing for our active duty military when they go to our state parks, and just a little food for thought, and maybe we can get it on the agenda later. Seems to be an interest there.
I agree. That's
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner
I have a question. Mr. Gomillion, I know that with permitting, there's a small portion that goes to the state. Is the state waiving that, or is the builder just going to pay that, or are we paying that? How does that work? Because some goes to the county and there's a small fee to the state.
There is a statute that deals with, the state has a statute that deals with these type of issues, and we think we would apply that statute for the state portion of that fee. I would want to reference just and believe in, just for clarity, that there are a number of fees that we would not be in control of, water, sewer impact, and those fire fees and those sorts of things. So that would be something that this board would not have purview over.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gomillion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 5 is discussion of options/tools for public educational effort in the proposed judicial center election. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is a material put together by the Public Information Officer, regarding the upcoming election for the replacement of the courthouse, the proposed judicial facility. As you see on the first page, the front page, she's kind of giving you a menu, if you will, or a list of tools or whatever you want to call it, options regarding that effort, you know, and then just the common sense things like setting up meetings around the county, meeting with the chambers, kind of having a speakers bureau with the civic groups, community organizations that meet. There's obviously you can do some paid advertising, and we've got the cost of that on the second page. Excuse me. Media, you know, we're tentatively trying to set up a media day at the courthouse, editorial board meetings, probably with the chair and the sheriff and the clerk and myself, just trying to meet with the editorial boards. And then you see the other things that you can do as far as fact sheets and talking points and those things, just in a normal public education portion of it. It's a little different this time. You know, obviously our focus would be on the need for a replacement, just on the problems, if you will, or the concerns with the existing facility and why it needs to be replaced. I think it's going to be a little difficult to try to figure out how to deal with the three sites other than, you know, the HOK information on each of the sites, and our position would not necessarily, or won't be advocacy, but just trying to point out the deficits of the current courthouse and the need for a judicial facility. And then on the second page, then if the board would choose, then that just gives you a range of cost regarding mailing, just kind of the normal election type process, the mail outs, radio ads, print ads, and then some range of cost in there that fire area media and those type things. And you can do as much or as little as, or we can do as much as little as directed by the board. But that just gives you a start of where we are and kind of what our approach is going to be from a staff perspective.
It's certainly going to be not one of an advocate. It's just going to be dead neutral. Comments from the board? Comments from the public?
Jerry Cooey, 6049 Arnie's Way. As we have discussed this issue before, we will discuss it again. I have read this into the record before. I'm going to give a copy of it so that the clerk may place it in record. I would like to read to you. It's not very long. Please bear with me. State Statute 106.113, expenditures by local government. Local government means a county and municipality, which we are. Number 2, any department, agency, board, or district of commission, which we are. B, public funds means all money under the jurisdiction or control of local government, which that's what we're talking about. Number 2, a local government or person acting on behalf of local government may not expend or authorize the expenditure of, and a person or group may not accept public funds for political advertisement or electioneering communication concerning an issue, referendum, or amendment, including any state question that is subject to the vote of the electors. This subsection does not apply to an electioneering communication from a local government or a person acting on behalf of a local government, which is limited to, here's the key word, factual information. Number 3, with the exception of the prohibition specified subsection 2, this section does not preclude an elected official of the local government from expressing an opinion on any issue at any time. Here's where I find a problem. 4 weeks ago, a piece of paper showed up on the county website, which was clearly, period, end of story, was advocating for the Pea Ridge property. Several of us raised objections to that, and it was removed from the county webpage. Okay, I came before the board at that time and spoke about that. My problem with all of this is you're spending tax dollars when all 5 of you, and you have a web page, which those things can be used. But I want to express again, and just as I said in 2006, this is not going to happen again. Okay, this is very serious to me. Okay, I just heard the county administrator say, well, we're going to talk about these things. Well, you can't advocate to be in favor of the sales tax. All you can do is say site number 1 is X acres, so many square feet, and this is what it costs. Site number 2, site number 3. Okay, any form of advocacy, you can't use taxpayer money to advocate a position to be in favor of the sales tax, according to this state statute. Okay? I don't want us to get in a bad situation. All right? And all of you have a voice, clearly written in the state statutes. You can set up all the meetings you want. You can go talk to the media all you want as individuals. The problem here is the expenditure of taxpayer money. And I would leave with one final thought on this so that we don't get in a problem. And several of you have my email address. If you decide to still do public advertising, if you decide to still push through and put it on the webpage, I might suggest to you that you let a handful of people look at it before you spend your money. Okay? Because what happened in 2006 over a tax initiative, I'm not going to tolerate again. I stood here and made it very clear. This county spent $56,000 of taxpayer money to advocate for something I didn't want. All right? I think it's only fair. This state statute was written because of actions like this throughout the state of Florida. I don't want us to go there. I don't want to go there. I'm asking that we follow the rules of the game, and before we spend $40 or $50 or $100,000 on glossy things going to voters, that we let a handful of citizens take a look at it to make sure, just to voice an opinion over, is there advocacy in there, because that's going to be a violation of the law. Again, it is our tax dollars that you are considering spending on this, and I would like you to carefully consider that and carefully consider what the state statute says specifically, which I've read to you twice and will be in the record. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Andrews, would you address that issue for us, please?
Yes, the statute does prohibit the use of public funds for express advocacy, which includes using words and phrases such as vote for, vote against, approve, reject, support, oppose, for or against a ballot issue. As far as the statute, it was amended in 2010 to eliminate the definition of electioneering to be for a position as opposed to a candidate. So, but we are familiar with the statutes, and we will make sure that all expenditures are appropriate and that all the information that's presented by the county would be factual information and not be express advocacy.
Thank you. Comments from the board? We'll move this to Thursday for further discussion. Yeah, I'm sorry. Other comments from the public? If you would, please just line up so I can tell that there are others that want to. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. I wondered what you all were going to try to educate the public about. questions that I have are things like, what kind of materials are you going to use for the building? How many offices are going to move from the current courthouse to the new courthouse, or office buildings such as this to the new courthouse? We don't know any of that. How many office buildings are going to be left vacant? It seems difficult for county residents to get information. Personally, I went to the meeting on Thursday down in the south end of the county, and I thought how difficult it must be for South End residents to make their voice heard when they have to travel all the way up here. That's a long trip. And if you do it for 2 meetings, that's doubly the long trip. So again, I think one of the things that you need to do is to figure out some way of educating the public so that it's not difficult for the public to get that information. I don't have internet. You know, everybody always tells me, we'll go on the internet and look up this information. I don't have it. It's not available where I live. Things like that you have to consider rather than assuming that everybody has internet and you can find out the information that way. Something Mr. Cooey was kind of alluding to was, how can you possibly present both sides of the question? I haven't really heard both sides of the question since I've been coming to these meetings. How much is the architect going to charge the county for supervising the construction of the building? I'm sure they're going to get paid a certain amount of money for the construction process. What's that going to be? Is it a percentage of the cost? What is the percentage?
I don't have that number. Mr. Walker, could you provide her with that? If you'll, after the meeting, the contract's available, we can give you the answer to that question.
They've already charged us quite a bit of money for the initial drawings, all kinds of things. Anytime you want them here to present some information, they charge us money for that. And then they're going to get money for the construction of the building. That, to me, seems like quite a bit. I appreciate your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board, staff. Ed Carson, 6705 Shady Hollow Drive, Pace. Just as an FYI, and I think the board is aware of this, but wearing my legislative coalition hat, which is a group composed of representation of the 5 chambers of Santa Rosa County, we took it upon ourselves about a month and a half, 2 months ago, to put together a group of experts in commercial development to put together a white paper that's going to address all 3 of the current sites that are on the ballot. I expect this information to be available in about a week to 10 days, and I would like to see, Mr. Walker, what your public information officer has put together. But anyway, I bring that to you as just a service. Our intent was to go to our membership and just run a straw poll. A couple of months back, it became very obvious to me and others on our committee that there's a lot of folks running around with a lot of information, some true, some not true. It's just because, you know, there's a lot of political issues here and emotions were running, running wild. So we decided it would be a good idea to put together people who are actually in the business to come together. There's not going to be any kind of recommendation. It's just going to lay out the facts as we see them as professionals in the business. And that'll be available, again, in about 7 to 10 days. It'll be available through the chambers. I don't know how it'll be transmitted otherwise, but I would make that available to you folks as well.
I don't think we would have any trouble with sharing that on our county website, would we? Mr. Andrews, do you see a problem with that initially?
Well,
like to see it before we.
Sure, understand that. That's why I used the word initially. Yeah. Of course, pending the content of what he brings us, but if the attorney will green light it, I don't see any good reason not for us not to use it on our website. We appreciate the effort.
Our intent is to get the information out there so people can make a good and informed decision about this. This is a 75 to 100-year decision that's in front of us, and we don't need to make it, again, based on misinformation, no information, or misunderstanding. So hopefully we can help to resolve some of that.
We don't need to spend a nickel that we don't need to spend if we can get it from concerned citizens like you, a group of professionals that can put together an accurate picture of what these costs are going to be. That'll save the county probably $40,000, $50,000, and we deeply appreciate your efforts. Look forward to seeing them.
Well, happy to do it. Our goal, again, is to get this thing done. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. We look forward to seeing your work product.
Just again, of course, I always value Mr. Cooey's advice on how I can do my business, but the point of fact is we're not going to, I don't see how as staff we're going to be able to focus on the sites. I mean, that's just going to be, you know, a decision that somebody's going to make. We've got the information that HOK's put together. Our focus specifically, in the Public Information Officer noted that, specifically is on the need for a judicial facility. I mean, that's clearly where we view our focus on, and I just don't see how, the board's not taking a position on a site. Certainly staff can't take a position on the site, so as best we can, and everybody's got their own set of facts, if you will. But point of fact, that's going to be for the people to decide. We're going to put out the HOK information that we have. We can use Mr. Carson's information. Certainly if they've taken a look at all the sites, that'd be one thing. Our focus, as it says on here, is going to be for the need for a judicial facility.
Well, I think that we might not consider spending the county's money on something so inherently obvious to the most casual observer. I think there's nobody in Santa Rosa County that would debate the fact that we need a new courthouse. Well, and I think that aspect of the question, I think, is moot, at least in my mind. I don't think there's anybody in Santa Rosa County that argue with the fact that we need a new courthouse. If that's the sole thrust of it, I oppose spending the money, especially with Mr. Carson's group of professionals bringing us the information. We'll have the information we want. I don't spending money to advocate or to educate the public over courthouses used up, worn out, and doesn't do what we need to have done anymore. It seems frivolous to me, Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree. I think it would be hard for anyone to make an argument against or opposing, you know, the fact that we need a new judicial facility. One thing that the educational campaign can do, I think, is describe the advantages of funding through a sales tax in a factual way, not necessarily an advocacy way, but point out the fact that, and I'm pulling this number out of my head, but I think it's pretty close, that 30% or 35% of the sales tax revenue comes from non-residents. So that of this $50 million project, $15 million is going to be paid by people who don't live in Santa Rosa County. So that is, I think that's worth pointing out, that a sales tax is a fair way to pay for a project of this magnitude, because it doesn't all come on the backs of Santa Rosa County residents, as it would if it were a property tax, or if it came out of just our general fund. So a targeted sales tax, you know, describing the benefits of that would be one plus.
Anything else from the commissioners before we open it up to the public? Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as it's factual information that's being sent out, I agree with Lane that we can't take a stance, yes, you should vote for this or you should vote against it, but factual information of 30% of this money comes from people not living in Santa Rosa County. That's a factual statement. We're not taking one side or the other, but we're putting that out there for somebody to say, hey, you know what, if 30% outside of the county, then it probably is a good idea. I also think that we need to make sure individually that we're going out and educating the public with town halls and different things. I know I plan on holding one at the Pace Community Center like I did right off the bat when I was appointed. It is it's a time to let people get out and express their frustrations, which is a good thing. And that night was not a walk in the park for me, being a new commissioner, to go out and have people very upset at me, and I just blamed it on the other 4 members of the board and said I haven't been here for too long. But no, to get out there and to see the frustrations, but talk to them, because people are going to be frustrated about this regardless if you go out into the public and talk to them or not. But by going out there, you're showing effort to listen, and they feel more comfortable when they see us out with them talking about it like we're not trying to hide anything. And I think that for us to get this thing passed through, it's going to take an effort for all 5 of us as individuals and as a board to come through and to educate the public, and also just to listen to them and talk to them. People want communication, and they deserve communication from their public officials.
Anything else, Commissioner Salter?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to basically say the same thing. I think it's important that we have a public factual information process that we go through, not necessarily for any particular site, but we can list things like the condition of the courthouse, the ADA problems that we're having, the need for the courthouse, and that should be the selling point. So I agree we need some type of public educational process.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the last few weeks, I've been asked a point-blank question: where do you think the courthouse should be? And my response to the folks that have asked me that is, that's up to where Bob Cole makes his mark in November. It's not up to Bob Cole as a county commissioner to say, I think it should be here. I believe the job of this Board of County Commissioners is to give, and I've said it before, the good, bad, and the ugly of all 3 locations, of the sales tax and the current conditions, and let the citizens of Santa Rosa County make the decision on this process. And that's what I've been telling them, and I reserve my right as an individual citizen to make my mark in November as far as where I actually think it should be. Thank you.
Mr. Cooey.
Jerry Cooey, 6049 Arnies Way. I, too, enjoy my many arm wrestling matches with the county administrator. But I have to point out again that a piece that was massively in favor of the Pea Ridge site was placed upon the website that the taxpayers pay for. Now, it was removed when an objection was raised. And to our county attorney, I appreciate the fact that you're saying, well, it's only going to be factual. Well, sometimes factual to one individual is advocacy in the eyes of another individual. That's why I simply ask, and I'm going to tell you, I've stood here over and over and over in support of this courthouse. You know, I'm not changing my position here. I want my Board of County Commissioners to be careful on this because it is a state statute. You have many, many things available to you. But again, it's a set of facts for one person. It's advocacy in the eyes of another person. And I think you should be very cautious when maybe all you know about is that $26,000 is going to be sent on a mail out and you didn't approve what was on it, because it's the 5 county commissioners' hide that's on the line if it turns out that it is an advocacy position that's there. We've had enough stuff to mire this process already. I'm doing my best. Olive branch, let's not do anything to mire this anymore. Okay, that's all I'm asking here. Thank you.
Good morning, Romy White, 5775 Arnold Lane in Milton. First of all, as most of you know, I was a county employee in the Public Information Office back in 2006. And so the difference between then and now, seeing how Mr. Walker is actually coming before the board and asking for money instead of spending it and getting permission later, that's really refreshing to see. But I would like to know, Mr. Walker, did you add this on today's agenda yourself, or did you get direction from any of the commissioners?
I placed this on the agenda as the Public Information Officer. We need to start some kind of public education campaigns. That's why it's on the agenda.
Right.
Oh, ma'am,
And
right.
is there any reason this wasn't started earlier in the process?
Just seemed like the right time. I mean, no, I don't know any reason that it wouldn't or would not be.
Okay, thank you.
Gee.
Yvonne Harper, 7375 Olympia Street. I just wanted to make 2 points with your discussion with the stating that 30% comes from tourists. While that might be a factual point, it is a very subtle form of persuasion and in a sense advocating, because when people read that, they would go, oh, great. So I think we need to be careful with that language. And also with the resolution on the ballot, I would encourage the commissioners to support making it binding. So whatever the voters decide on the location, future boards can't change that. Thank you.
Yvonne, Mr. Chairman, the state statutes prohibit us from having a binding straw poll. Any straw poll pursuant to state statute is non-binding. The resolution and the ballot question dealing with the sales tax is binding, and it does tie us to whatever location is chosen by the electorate. So we are bound. To say that we're not bound by the decision of the people is purely semantics, because legally we can't spend the sales tax revenue on any site other than the site that is selected by a majority of the voters in November.
And that language is part of the tax?
It is
sales
part
tax
of the
option?
sales tax referendum,
Okay.
yes. It specifically states that the sales tax will be spent for construction of a judicial facility at a location to be decided by referendum of the people.
Okay.
Commissioner Cole.
And as far as the advocacy on the facts,
Well, you know, it's just it's
facts
a subtle.
are facts.
I
You're
know,
entitled
but
to your own facts, but not
no, I
your
understand.
own
But you know how
opinion,
it
but
can
not
be.
your own facts. You know, so
It's a very fine line between using them in a persuasive form, and so I think we just need to be careful with that. I mean, it's a great selling point. You know, I mean, it is. But that was it. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Cole and then
Okay.
Mr. Salter.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, and I'd like for board input on this. You know, we're talking about, you know, all this advertisement and communication tool options. I think that exact explanation that Commissioner Lynchard gives perhaps should be part of this information that we're putting out to people, so it's not misconstrued. Because I know Yvonne's, you know, there's several people in the community that are really involved in the political process, especially right now, and to have any confusion there, I think, you know, that statement in this information sheet would be helpful in eliminating any doubt of the location.
And another thing we could do is ask this volunteer group right here to make sure they get that in their information, in their handout. My mind right now, if I had to vote on it, I would say, no, let's don't spend money on this issue. I'm open-minded. I'm willing to hear the rest of the discussion. But we can incorporate your suggestion, Commissioner Cole, with what the volunteer group led by Mr. Ed Carson is going to do. Mr. Carson, did you have a comment?
I failed to mention Ed Carson, 6705 Shady Hollow Drive. I failed to mention, and I heard somebody speak to it, Mr. Walker, I believe, that there is going to be a piece in our paper that is basically titled The Cost of Doing Nothing, which is not only going to be financial implications, but the lawsuit situations, the ADA suits, the potential for liability, and that sort of thing. So that's going to be a part as well.
Jim Young, 5049 Basin Avenue. Good morning. I just want to say that I pledge my support for this educational effort to the voters. Number one, it's obviously a very, very big issue in this county. It's a large amount of money. People get their information from different sources, not just the internet, but the print media, TV media. I see the goal in this educational process as trying whatever we can do to get a greater turnout at the polls. so that, i.e., you will have a greater cross-section of the voters. When I first came of age to vote, to see a 75 to 90% turnout in Santa Rosa County was not unheard of. It's rather embarrassing that we had less than 24% of the registered voters in the last election vote, which means a very small percentage of the registered voters are expressing their position. Maybe the rest of them don't care, or maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just don't have the education of the issues. You know, we live in a busy world. TV spots that are 30 seconds long that direct people to a source of information is all that needs to be said. Those that choose to educate themselves and come to the polls, I'm hoping we have a greater turnout for something as serious as this. And that's what I see the purpose of. I understand there's Florida statutes that govern everything, especially when it comes to local government. And I have full faith that you commissioners and the county attorney will do their best. You guys will ask the right questions. He'll give you the right answers, and it'll keep you out of trouble. You know, and I understand some of the statements that have been made that it's not so much what you say, but it's how you say it that's important, and perception is reality, and how you can make statement of fact as long as you can, you got a bibliography or a reference to where that fact came from, whether it was an HOK presentation, whether it was FDOT information, whether it was whatever. You know, referencing those facts, some people may interpret those as an advocacy. Well, that's because they chose to read it subjectively rather than objectively. If it's a fact-based statement, it's a fact-based statement. If it doesn't support your predetermined position, you may determine that to be advocacy. That's your personal choice. But I am just in favor of doing whatever we can do to, you know, when you're talking about a $50 million project, there again, the amount of money that it would take to try your best, and that's all you can do. It's one of those, it's like Ed Carson spoke, it's the cost of doing nothing, and it's the value of doing nothing. The more you educate the voters, the more chance you've got to get a greater turnout, create the interest. You know, those that already have a predetermined position are going to show up and vote. I'd like to see those that maybe are a little late on the train, but I would like to see as many people, I'd like to see us get back to some of those proud numbers that we had in voter participation in decades past. So I support this. Thank you.
Ms. Cantu?
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. I guess what I'm concerned most about is we're being led to believe we have choice. We have a choice of a courthouse here or a courthouse there or a courthouse there. Going to cost us $50 million. Well, if I think I can't afford $50 million and you say, well, then you can't have a courthouse. To me, that's not the right choice. We should have a choice between a courthouse that costs $50 million if we want all the nice woodwork and all the other stuff that might go with a nice courthouse that costs $50 million, or we go with one that is more reasonable, it's not showy or whatever, and maybe that courthouse is going to cost $35 million or $40 million, but it's certainly a lot less than $50 million. We really don't have the choice, I think, that a lot of people believe they do. If I can't afford $50 million, then I say, well, I can't afford a new courthouse. But then you say, well, wait a minute, we can change this or change that or change this other thing over here, and we can come down to $30 million courthouse, which would be more reasonable. Again, I believe we should have definite choices and not the choices that I was through anyway, thank you.
I don't know what happened to you, but we didn't cut you off. Yes, ma'am.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I think maybe education should have been done from the beginning, from the start of this issue. Time and time again, people came to the podium and asked you for town hall meetings. I went to the town hall meetings that Mr. Williamson, the meeting that Mr. Williamson did. A lot of people showed up. And it's my opinion that the people who show up for your town hall meetings are the people who are going to show up to vote. And they may even have friends and neighbors, and then they can share what they learn at those meetings to those people. But pretty much, I think people who show up for town hall meetings and take an actual interest are going to be your voters. So instead of spending $50,000 on educating the public now, and maybe having a problem with how it's done and a statute, start having your town hall meetings now. That will cost way less. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl Hudgens, 3412 Barkwood Drive in Pace. I guess our decision here as to whether to spend taxpayers' money on an education program that I can't see any other way than it is an advocacy issue with the stance that we've taken. We're saying that it's to educate the public on the need for a courthouse. And we've already picked 3 courthouses, and we've designed 3 courthouses. The board has not considered any other options, anything like a judicial annex at the jailhouse. We briefly talked about it, real briefly, but it was never considered seriously. So I think it's going to be an advocacy thing. Unless you include things like what I consider a fact, a sales tax may drive buyers to internet purchases instead of buying things in our county. I'm going to start looking for ways to avoid a new tax. I think that's human behavior. It may affect auto sales in our county. It could affect a lot of things. It could affect whether mom and pop businesses stay open or close. I don't think those things are going to be in your information package. I personally enjoy spending money in Santa Rosa County because when I come across that bridge, I know the taxes are lower and I like it. I usually don't stop to eat over there. I wait to eat in Santa Rosa County. Maybe I'm a tightwad, but I like lower taxes. There was a principle in the Reagan administration, and it was called the Laffer curve. And the principle was it was a bell curve. As taxes go up, the income, it wasn't a bell curve, I'm sorry. But there's a beneficial amount to raising taxes, a small amount, but as taxes go higher, the economy stutters and it flattens off. And I don't know if we're going to reach that bell curve or not. But I think it will affect human behavior in ways that we're not really thinking too much about right now. And I don't think in your information package you're going to offer options as to how other ways a courthouse or a court facility can be financed. So it sounds to me like it's going to be an advocacy program. I'm not sure I'm for this. I think I would probably be against spending this money. I was pretty much for the courthouse because it seemed like we were doing it on a fairly moderate scale, as reasonably as we can. But I missed the meeting where we changed the wording on the ballot to extend the tax to 5 years to try to garner $60 million. And I think you might have lost my support when we went that route. I'm still not 100% sure which way I'll go, supporting the tax or not supporting the tax, but that was a little hard pill to swallow. Now we've extended it 5 years down the road, and we don't know what's going to happen to our economy in the United States in 5 years. And so higher taxes extended out that period of time, it could be a bitter economic pill to swallow. So I would probably at this time not support spending the money on this advocacy. What I might term might become advocacy, education program. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else before we move on to a different subject? Okay. I recommend we move item number 5 to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Let's go ahead and take 5 here, and we're less than halfway through the administrative committee. So let's take 5, and we'll be back in place. you'd make your way to your seats, please. And if you've used your phone, please be sure that you readjust the volume so that we don't get interrupted by incoming messages or phone calls. We left off on administrative item number 6.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Is if we could just, on the clarification to number 5, is why don't you said to go to Thursday's agenda. What I'll bring back is maybe have the public information officer go ahead and schedule the evening meetings that you see in the first batch, her first note, just at least start the process through here. We don't need any money to do all that, and then at least to kind of start lining y'all up, staff up, on what to kind of go to the
Yes, sir.
various groups. So that'd be what we'll focus on for.
Okay.
We need to get something started.
Yes, sir. That doesn't involve public dollars other than the fixed costs of the staff. We pay 24 hours a day. All right, administrative item number 6, discussion of amendment number 1 to the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence contract for domestic violence grant program and authorize execution of the relevant documents. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I believe this was an amendment that was required by additional that the state asked us to do regarding the deaf and hard of hearing.
Comments from the board? Comments from the public? I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 7 is discussion of the community off-site clinic agreement with Walgreen Company to provide annual flu shots for employees at several locations at no cost to Santa Rosa County. Details are in the backup. It has to do with our flu shots, et cetera. Unless there's discussion from the board or anybody in the public, I recommend that we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 8 is discussion of fiscal year 2014-15 Florida Division of Libraries and Information Services State Aid to Libraries Agreement for library operations. Again, the details are in the backup. Unless there's discussion from the board or the public, I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 9 is discussion of annual designation of surplus property for disposal by the clerk of the courts. That list is provided in the backup. This is done every year about this time. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No objection to this. I just wondered if we could get some information from the clerk. I suggested last time we went through this possibility of putting this online, and didn't know if we were able to accomplish anything on that. I just wondered if we were able to put this surplus list online and possibly get more bidders involved on that.
Yes, we should be able to do that. And the surplus on what the county commissioners are going to determine whether we're going to send and destroy. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, whatever's on your list. Last time we went through this, I read somewhere another county in Florida was able to put their surplus not just through regular auctions, but also put it online.
I checked with Okaloosa County on that. I know you're talking about Okaloosa County where they were auctioning off their surplus. I gave that information to the former county attorney for them to pursue that, because it would have to go to the Board of Commissioners for that to be approved. And they would have to, it's a company that also the tax collector has used to sell some of their surplus. But I have not heard from the boards, the former county attorney on that.
Mr. Chairman, if we could maybe have some information for us on Thursday, see if we can do that.
I think what I heard Commissioner Cole say was, would you please provide the list you provided us to the PIO so the PIO can put it online so the world can look at what you're proposing to dispose of?
Yes, I'll do that.
Yeah,
thank you.
All right. I recommend we move item number 9 to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 10 is discussion of the 4th Annual Science Spooktacular by the Sea event hosted by the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station in the Navarre Beach Marine Park, October the 24th through the 25th, 2014. Recommend approval without objection. Move this to Thursday. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 11 is discussion of honorable mention given to Santa Rosa County by the National Association of Counties for accomplishments in the field of arts and cultures. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mentioned to the board after the National Association of Counties meeting, which, by the way, Brian DeLoche from Leon County did win second VP, so we'll eventually have a president of NACO from Florida again. That's going to be nice. But we won, Santa Rosa County Arts and Culture won honorable mention for their accomplishments in the field of arts and culture. And this was awarded by the National Association of Counties Arts and Culture Commission on July 13, 2014 in New Orleans at the National Convention. Unfortunately, honorable mention doesn't come with a check, so we're going to heartily go for first place next year. So I look forward to that. And it's amazing me, the realization that communities and municipalities and even states have become more and more back into arts and culture, and the recognition that it aids arts and culture and not just economic development, but also in our education process. So glad to see that and glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay, this action requires, this doesn't require any action by the board, so there's no need to move this to Thursday. Item number 12 is an info-only public hearing scheduled for 9:30 Thursday, August 24th. None. Item 13 does require our attention. It's an add-on. It's the flood repairs. Mr. Walker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's just acceptance of the license agreement with the property owner at 2635 Venetian Way, and that will facilitate the restoration of the eroded areas that had blown out during the April flooding.
Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to point out we are still waiting on one more license agreement for the property owner on the other side of the easement before we can issue the notice to proceed for this particular repair.
All right. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. That completes the administrative committee. Next is the engineer's report. Mr. Blaylock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Item number 1, Mr. Walker asked me to give the board an update on the beach chair umbrella vendor ordinance that had been discussed in previous meetings. Navarre Beach staff has scheduled a meeting, which was after Labor Day, that we had discussed earlier, on September 11th at 2:00 p.m. in the Navarre Visitor Center. We anticipate the invitation to include representatives from the Navarre Beach Leaseholder and Residents Association, our condominium homeowners associations, property owners, any interested public, as well as the vendors that we do know that are operating on Navarre Beach. The goal of which is discuss the issues and bring back to the board sometime on or around the 1st of January a specific report on what our findings are, and the board would take action at that time to determine if it is once an ordinance drafted. We have several draft ordinances from other local governments that we are reviewing, and we plan to disseminate that information to all parties involved. And then the board would make a decision for if they decided to pursue an ordinance, we'd like to have it in place by our March 1 time frame to pick up spring break.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. You have comments?
Good morning again. Robert Coley, 8271 Gulf Boulevard. I'm president of the Navarre Towers Homeowners Association, and I've also have emails authorizing me to speak for the Belle Mer Condo Association as well as the Emerald Surf Condo Association. I appreciate the fact that you're going to have the meeting on September 11th, and we'll certainly be there to hear what this ordinance is about. But we talked about this a couple of years ago here, and I explained then, I'd like to explain again, why it's important that the condo associations control the chair and umbrella vendor that's in front of their condo. Each condo association has its own criteria about what they're looking for a vendor. And in the case of Navarre Towers, we require the vendor to have a certified lifeguard as an attendant. In fact, this year, that person was saved 2 people that were drowning in the Gulf of Mexico. And had we not had that type of person out there being the attendant, instead of having 1 person drown on Navarre Beach this spring, you'd have had 3. So that's very important to us. The other thing is that we provide access to the beach for the person that's an attendant. We let him or her use our bathroom facilities. We control the hours of operation that they're on the beach. So I don't know I really don't understand why there's going to be discussion about an ordinance when it seems to be working very well as far as we're concerned. And we appreciate the fact that you're going to have the meeting, we'll be there, but I just want to let the commissioners know that's the feeling of at least 3 of the condo associations. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I recommend we move this item to Thursday without objection. Yes, sir.
I don't think there'll be any action needed on Thursday.
I'm sorry. Thank you for that correction. You're absolutely right. This does not require any action. All right, item number 2 is discussion of proposed clarifications and amendments. Mr. Blaylock, would you proceed with that one?
Yes. What we have done is, as we've gone through the process of reviewing, and just recently came to our attention as we went through the ADA sidewalk issue, that some of our Chapter 4 land development codes are not consistent with current policy and state statute, and we're just asking permission of the board to proceed with the process. We'll draft the changes, take them to the planning board, and ultimately come back to you in the form of adoption of an amendment to the ordinance.
Any discussion from the board? I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection.
Item number 3, we will ask for an action item on Thursday because we did adjust the RFP. Is a discussion of the North End Waste Haulers request for proposal. In attachment B is the backup, is the actual RFP. We would propose that we would wordsmith 10,000 to 15,000 gross vehicle weight. We anticipate receiving those proposals on September 23rd for possible action by the board the following Thursday. It's very important that we move forward because we need to give the selected vendor or vendors an opportunity to schedule their containers. They're going to have to order them, ship them in, and we'd like to have the agreement in place and actual start date January 1, which is consistent with the calendar year.
Okay, I recommend we move this to Thursday with the stipulation that we get that wordsmithing completed because the gross vehicle weight listed is incorrect and insufficient, and it needs to read 15,000. And I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 4 is go ahead.
Item number 4 is construction plan approvals for Boracay Cove subdivision. This is a 67-lot subdivision in Working District 1, and they are working to stay on the agenda for Thursday.
I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes.
And that concludes the engineer's report.
Public Services, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is project update on the Navarre Park restrooms. I'm going to let Mr. Gomillion address that. I believe he has some slides to put up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Mr. Blaylock will queue up. We had some Google Earth, these are Google Earth photos, just so that you're aware. They're not photos that we took this week. And what I've done is directed by the board. We met with Mr. Dabney and several other volunteers were present on the 19th. We went through sort of a laundry list of discussion items to try to, as you had directed, try to find a way to move this forward. And I do have a detailed list of those discussions in your backup. I've tried to encapsulate that into 6 points on the memo that I provided you. And I'll just walk through those if it's okay with the board and real quickly discuss those 6 items that we'd like for the board to acknowledge so that we feel confident in the way we move forward. First of all, the project, as we've determined, would be best located on the western end of the property. The yellow does not particularly depict the exact location. It would actually be located closer to the sidewalk. There are a number of reasons that we concluded that it would be best. Initially, the staff had, in the early stages months ago, and the staff just talking about an internal project and talking with the Parks Department, there was a discussion about locating closer to the visitor center. This location is higher ground, the highest ground in the park. It is out of the flood zone, which would allow for us to have, it also is a larger space. It would allow for us to have adequate space to build the size building that we're looking at building. It would allow the building to be constructed on grade, and which would certainly make the access issues easier in terms of the ADA requirements and just the general access to the building. And we believe that by building in out of the flood zone, then at grade, we can still ensure this building, whereas if we were to build it below the floodplain, most likely we would not be able to ensure the building if you built it closer. The second point that I reference is just the size of the building that has been discussed is a 30 by 50 building. In meeting and discussing with the volunteers, you know, we had discussed a preference for a concrete block type building. Since we are going to move the building, or at least the proposed location is to the west, we've discussed utilizing treated materials, a hardy board exterior, metal roof, tiling the interior walls, and to use the epoxied concrete floor. Also using primarily the stainless steel fixtures, touchless dispensers and fixtures, and the facility would be air conditioned and heated. As far as kind of the designation of the duties, the volunteer group would provide the design services. They're going to provide a contractor to pull the permits and help oversee the project. They would provide the labor for the project. The county would provide, we're going to provide a site plan which helps pull everything together. We would provide the grade we would desire for the building to be built at. We would provide for the utility connections and specifications, that design for both the sewer and for the electrical services and plumbing services, the utility services needed. Item number 4, in order to maintain the safety and security during this project construction, we would recommend that the westernmost pavilion that you see in the photograph there be closed during this construction, and we would use some sort of security fencing, either the orange plastic fencing, or if needed, a heavier fencing to secure around this site during the construction phase. Our 5th bullet would be that the county would purchase the materials we would that are not donated. There may very well be some donated materials. Our procurement process would follow our normal process. We would ask our building maintenance department to go through what they normally do when they're working on buildings, county buildings. Receiving quotes would be a typical way to do that from our local vendors for the various products needed, and so we would accomplish the purchases through the county system. And then finally, the county, when we had done an initial very preliminary budget number, we came up with a $60,000 number for materials. I'm not sure we captured all the internal features of the building. The volunteer group thought that number may reach as $90,000 to $100,000. So just for discussion, and since the county is going to be in charge of the project in terms of the procurement, it'd be our recommendation, if you're willing to establish a $100,000 budget for this project, and then, of course, we will report back the actual expenditures for those materials. These items sort of give us a general track to run on and move this project forward, and we would be glad to change or amend this as you see the need.
Thank you,
Any
Mr.
questions?
Any comments from the board? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really like this project, and it seems to have started something, because we're getting that type of input now from at Henderson Park. or the other park that we have for our handicap, where citizens and different groups are starting to want to get more involved. So I'm hoping that this is going to kind of set us like a template for how we can do these type of things, where we set that money aside, and then as these projects start to more or less develop a life of their own, you see more and more input. I talked to James just the other day, and he had a company said that they'd provide a $2,000 lighting package. It's all LED. I've been talking to a friend of mine that has Compass Solar, and he's giving some consideration to possibly a solar hot water heating system. We've talked to Lowe's about the tile for the inside. So I think once people in the community see that this is starting to happen, they want a piece of the pie. So I can only appreciate what's going on here. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board, comments from the public? Yes.
Romy White again. I just want to speak on behalf of other parents of small children to say it would be fantastic if the bathrooms could be closer. If you might want to just reach out to your user groups, you'll find that the parents that use the park and the splash pad and visit to see the ducks, and even some of the people who are older and they attend the concerts on Thursday nights, it's very cumbersome to have to walk to the other end of the park to use the bathroom. So even if the bathrooms had to be maybe a little bit smaller, or even if you built two facilities, one on the eastern side and one on the western side, it's just food for thought from a parent of a young daughter. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and Roger, if you can, and I appreciate that, I do know that there's an interest. If you can come back to those slides real quick, and I'll just give you the kind of the picture there. Yes, the next one's, yeah, if you'll look in the center of the top photograph, you'll see the area that was initially discussed west of the visitor center. It would be probably too small of an area for us to get that size building. Also, you've got a ditch that comes down through there, near there, so the property starts falling off and is a lower elevation, as well as the shoreline kind of reaches in toward you at that location. So we have several things that doesn't mean we can't do it. It just those are the areas of concern. You're looking at that same area sort of head on there in the lower picture. So what Romy mentioned is certainly we recognize, and we talked about that with the volunteers. And again, staff's initial focus was to kind of look in that area. If you can go to that third picture, Roger, you'll see where the floodplain, how the flood elevations are in that area. And so, again, that particular graphic helped me decide that it was probably a good thing to try to go ahead and get it moved on down and kind of meet the best option. There are a lot of people, I understand, use the park during a lot of events. The larger bathrooms would accommodate those large crowds, but we will proceed as the board directs us.
And I'd just like to add that these will be in addition to the permanent bathrooms that already exist inside the county's building there at the chamber. So those facilities will be open as well during these high-use hours and during the nighttime events as well, the Thursday nights in the park and such. We can coordinate that. But the point's well made, and we're considering that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Unless there are any other questions, then I'll move this to Thursday to approve the, we need approval on Thursday? Okay, move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2 is discussion of appointment of Anna Weaver to the SHIP Advisory Committee as recommended by that committee. And I do move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3, discussion of approval to submit annual reports as prepared to Florida Housing Finance and authorization of execution of the certification forms by the chairman and county administrator. Unless there are any questions, I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4 is discussion of approval of support for a Navarre Community Access Road feasibility study as proposed by the Florida Department of Transportation. The study will require a local 50% match of $250,000. This kind of dovetails in with as a result of the application that we submitted that would have required a local match of $1 million for a full-fledged PD&E study. But there's limited funding available there from the state, so I think this would be a much better way to go. Also, it gives us, again, feasibility study for a quarter of the cost of what a full-fledged PD&E would be. And community access road, something that is sorely needed down there. It may be years and years away, but this is a step in the right direction. Any other comments, questions from the board? If not, I will move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And that concludes public services.
Public Works, Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no items for Public Works Committee today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Item number 1 is discussion of bids received for annual chain link fencing contract. As the sole bidder is Santa Rosa Fence and More. So I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-164 in the amount of $36,804 to repay the TDC for money spent for the construction of the Navarre Beach Sea Turtle Conservation Center building promised from District 4 reserves. I do so. I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes. And just a note on that, this is correcting a bookkeeping error. The money got transferred, but it came out of the wrong pot. So this is paying the pot back. This is just straightening up some bookkeeping. And that moves to Thursday without objection.
All right, number 3 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-165 in the amount of $10,500 to transfer funds from the capital fund to the general fund for a large scanner copier for the engineering department as approved at the August 14, 2014 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. If there's any discussion, if not, I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-166 in the amount of $578,760 to carry forward prior year program income and interest and recognize current year program income and interest of 7/1/2013 through 5/31/2014 and reallocates strategy balances to substantial rehabilitation and ship administration in the SHIP program fund. Do so, I move that to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-167 in the amount of $600 to fund the unexpected additional cost for the supply of power to the irrigation of Phase 2 Highway 90 Medium Beautification Project from the District 5 project funds. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to point out, that should be Highway 98 Medium Beautification Project. This project has been all but completed down there in front of Grand Point, Villa Venice, Avalex. That area looks great. I think it really is does bring a lot to the drive there. Same thing with the first project that UPA was instrumental in completing there in front of Walmart and Lowe's in Tiger Point. Has really improved the look of the median.
And I'm sure Commissioner Williamson and Salter are disappointed because we probably thought you were willing to share some of your funding with us up here. Yeah. All right, so I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes. Yes, ma'am. Come forward, please.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. A couple of weeks ago, I asked something about being careful about the irrigation and things like that. We wanted to protect the water and so forth. Are we talking about an irrigation system that is like a drip irrigation or something that's going to be conservative of water?
Ms. Cantu, this irrigation is with gray water that's provided by SSR US down there, City Gulf Breeze Utilities.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, next item on today's agenda is item 6 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-168 in the amount of $48,085 to carry forward funds for the purchase of a self-propelled broom in the Road and Bridge Fund as approved at the August 2014 August 14th, 2014, Board of County Commissioner regular meeting, and do so without, move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 7 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-169 in the amount of $280,000 to recognize the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant funds in the District 2 Recreation Fund in the amount of $200,000 and an additional TDC reserves in the amount of $80,000 as approved by the TDC at their June 23, 2014 meeting. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And final item is the check register and county expenditures, and I'll have that signed for your approval. And move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes budget and finance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cole. Public forum. Anybody have anything to address the board? Please step forward.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. I did want to make a suggestion, if there's a way that you could either have more meetings so that they could be done either in the south end of the county or possibly by video. I noticed you had something set up there Thursday when we had the meeting, maybe incorporating the south end of the county into the North County meetings, or having more meetings to provide those people in the south end of the county an opportunity, possibly too even in the evenings, because there are a lot of people who can't get off from work and therefore are not given the opportunity to make their feelings known. I just think it would be something that the south end of the county deserves the opportunity to speak just as we do here. I hate to think what I would do if I had to go all the way to the south end of the county every time I wanted to.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu, and I appreciate those comments. We have scheduled regular quarterly meetings in the Tiger Point Community Center at this point of the Board of County Commissioners, as well as the local planning and zoning board. So this time last year we had 0. Now we're having one every quarter. And then we'll build on that. And as technology evolves, there may be a point where we can have some sort of streaming opportunity between the two. But some of that gets difficult because of the sunshine law and the types of interaction that you can have. But well taken, and we're trying to incorporate as much of that as we can with the south end of the county. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Brent Moore. I live at 7721 Gulf Boulevard in Navarre Beach, Florida. I have 12 copies of a photograph I'd like you all to see. I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to distribute them. The photograph that you're seeing, I personally took yesterday. This is approximately the 7700 block of Gulf Boulevard, and it depicts the status of the beach at that particular location. You'll note that the staircase coming down. Thank you. About 1.5 to 2 years ago, 4 of those stairs, the bottom stairs, were covered with sand going on out into the beach. And now you see there's a 6-foot drop from the bottom stairs down to, there is no beach, that's water down there. The ladder that you see in the picture was put there by a renter in that complex. And I guess the 3 points I'd like to make on this is, Navarre Beach is in competition, like it or not, with Destin and Fort Walton to the east and Pensacola Beach to the west. And with a beach like this, we're going to lose. And it just shows that we need to take funding of beach renourishment and get it done. It's been talked about for years since I've been here. And it was my understanding after the last beach renourishment that it was expected to be talked about between 6 and 8 years after that. And here we are working on 9 years. I would like to suggest to this board that in addition to looking at beach renourishment now, you look at it, it's going to happen 6 years from now. So let's get a funding mechanism in place so that we're not in the same position another 6 years or wherever we'll be for funding. You'll note that the erosion is going into the berm, and so that's going to be more expensive for beach renourishment. The state vehicles can't get by, the turtle people can't get by, the sheriff can't get by, so we need action. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for the picture. Mr. Blaylock, do we have that safetied off so the public can't go down there and avail themselves of that ladder?
I'm not certain that's a public access. I'm going to talk to the gentleman afterwards. This may or may not be one of our crossovers. This could be a private walkway.
It is.
We'll
All right, we'll
confirm
look
it.
into that.
But
Thank
we
you.
don't discount the fact that we do get spot erosions, particularly when the winds come out of the south, and we do
Right.
close them as necessary and then repair as we can.
Well, I was unaware that there were public crossovers and private. I mean, I know we have public crossovers, but I didn't know we had private. Okay, I just learned something new every day. Yes, sir, name and address for the record.
Hey, I'm Larry Sims, 7510 Boulevard. A couple of things. One of them is the beach renourishment that he was just talking about. That is indicative. There's many places out there. Terry Wallace has repaired some of the public walkover because of erosion. The west end of the beach is gone. But my end of it was, I need to talk just a little bit more about the lease fees and all. Do you have something we can take to our leaseholders out there as far as a timeline or anything? There's some people that are very strapped by that.
Let me interrupt you just with a question to the attorney. Mr. Andrews, we started this discussion before you came on board, but when we started the discussion of being able to drop the lease fee to $1 for those leaseholders who were current with their taxes and current with their lease fees, to give them relief until such time as we could get them a deed. And at that time, we were instructed by the attorney that there were other issues that we would, there were legal issues in the mix that we precluded us doing that. Are we clear now, and can this board proceed with that discussion?
The Florida Supreme Court has rendered the final decision in regard to the taxation case, so I don't think there's anything that would preclude the county from going forward with whatever action they want to take in regard to the lease fees. At this point, I haven't been directed to do so.
Okay, sir.
As of this date.
But we don't have a problem with the law doing that. Mr. Walker, would you please, just for the record, in the next set of meetings, would you schedule the discussion of this item in the next set of meetings?
And do recall that the board does have the policy that was established in 2001 regarding the providing as soon as when property taxes are paid, lease fees are credited against that. So you shouldn't be paying both. But we'll be glad to put this on an agenda and
let's wrap this up, put a bow around it, and move on. This has been bounced around. If you would bring that to us in the next set of meetings, and we'll dispose of it if we're legally free to do so at this point.
Okay. We'll do it.
Thank you.
John Lewis. I'm at 1492 Arkansas Street in Navarro Beach. I'm on the Beach Beautification Committee out there, and have worked with several of you folks on some projects out there, and trust me, we do appreciate the support. We just recently did an irrigation project where we put a well in for some of the areas. The problem we have is water, and that covered just basically the entrance from the first Causeway Bridge to the four-way stop sign. What we're trying to do now is, and a little bit to the right there, to the west. So what we're trying to do now is push it all the way to the sign that's on the west end so we can irrigate some of the islands. We've lost a lot of trees over the years. When we put those things in, we actually watered them. We watered them with an old fire truck, carrying them about twice a week to water the trees to get them. What we're trying to do now is figure out how do we do this. Now, we got a couple options. One is more wells and more irrigation lines up there. But the one I get hit at every time I go to a Navarro Beach meeting, which is once a month, I get hit with, why can't we use treated water? Why do we have to drill wells, and why do we do this? We have a water plant sitting right out there. I don't have an answer for them. And what I'm asking is somebody can help me figure out why we can't use treated water to push that water up to the west end so we can irrigate all our islands and even build more. So that's basically it.
There may be some reasons why, because, you know, the permits to operate sewer plants are complex, but Mr. Blaylock, please.
Yes, certainly. As far as you're talking about reuse water, not potable water, we cannot issue irrigation wells tied into the potable water system.
I'm talking about gray water, and I assume that you were as well.
Well, we're talking about, as far as reuse, it's just a capital cost associated with transmitting that water up and down the beach. I mean, it's very expensive to build that infrastructure, and wells are much more or less expensive than the cost associated with trying to run a secondary water main the entire length of Navarro Beach. That's about 3.5 miles. So that was in a nutshell. We've looked at it's the cost of the capital associated with it. We looked at reuse as an alternative to our sound discharge a number of years ago, and we had numbers that were developed in a report. So we've got a lot of information on reuse, and I think we looked at it about 4 years ago again, as we were talking about putting the wells where you described in the Navarro Park servicing the Causeway area.
So we might be coming back asking for some more money for 2 more wells because we're gonna try to push it all the way to the west end.
What we will probably have for you when you come back and ask for that is some cost analysis to validate the fact that that's the most efficient way to do it, or to say that it's not quite as expensive as we thought and we'll do it the other way. But one or the other, we want you to keep doing what you're doing, and I personally support that.
And just for the board's information, we do have a permit for reuse, but it's only in the non-public contact area of our treatment plant. The fenced area, we do utilize reuse on our lawns.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Through the chair to Roger, we discussed at length several years ago the ribs up on Eglin Air Force Base. And if we have a use for that water without having to push it all the way up to Eglin, I can see there'd be quite a bit of cost savings there. Do we still have any facts and figures? I'm sure from looking at putting it in the ribs, and let's look at putting it all over the island and instead of having to go all the way to Eglin with it.
Yes, it's been addressed in several reports.
Okay, because we got a possibility of a new motel coming online and this project, and I could see where it may be something we want to look at an investment in the near future on reuse for the island. So.
We'll bring the numbers down.
But the one thing I heard him say, I want you to bring back the price of reworking the permit. We're permitted to spray our gray water within the fence line of the plant, is what I understood you to say. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that is, and I want to differentiate between gray water and reuse, just for,
okay,
there is a significant difference. Reuse is treated to a higher level so that it does allow human contact.
Okay.
Whereas gray water is a reusable water, but not necessarily treated to the same standards, so.
Okay, so we have a second source of water that we could possibly use, okay, and without modifying the permit?
It's the same source, but I just want you to, instead of us describing it as gray water, let's use reuse.
My question is it going to require reworking our basic permit?
Yes, sir.
It
Yes,
will,
sir,
either way, whichever gray
Yes,
water or the higher grade water?
Yes, it will.
Okay, well, just if you could get those numbers, so we'll look at them. But the project is worth every nickel that it cost us.
Yeah. One quick one for you. We just want to say thank you to the board and the TDC down at the South End for helping us. We're a bunch of volunteers, so the pay is not too good, but we do believe in what we're doing, and we definitely get support. We got a couple more projects coming up, got another FY coming in, so we would appreciate the support. We'll be providing some inputs to you pretty soon. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Laurie Gallup, 1869 Flamingo Lane in Navarre. I've got a question since we're talking about the waste treatment plant on Navarre Beach. Is it true that we're under a consent order and we actually have to pay fines for the water that we're dumping into the sound there?
No, we're not.
So we're not paying any fines for what we're doing out on Navarre Beach with the waste treatment plant?
No, we are not.
Okay.
Just for the board's information, we were under a consent agreement, but there were no fines associated with it. It was just a consent agreement that we would meet our effluence limits, and we went through a major rehab on the beach, and we do currently meet those.
Okay. Well, has it been looked at once the hotel's added onto the waste treatment plant, what's going to happen then?
Yes.
It has?
The original plant.
Is there a way to find that study? Is that?
No, the original treatment plant permit operated with 255 units at Holiday Inn, and it's my understanding with the board approving 160, so we have, adequate capacity to handle up to 255, plus we have additional capacity available, and we do a capacity analysis with our permit renewal, and that's all a matter of public record.
Okay. Do we discharge any water into the sound from the waste treatment plant on Navarre Beach? Do we discharge any water into the sound from Navarre Beach?
Yes, we do.
Is that possibly adding to our pollution problems that we're having in the sound in the Navarre area?
Not according to our permit. We are meeting the permit limits, which is an AWT plant. An illustration, I use this and when I speak to groups, if we take our drinking water and I walk to the discharge and I pour it into the discharge going into the sound, I do violate the permit. So we're actually treating our wastewater to a higher standard than our drinking water on Navarre Beach. But it does have constituents in it, but it's negligible.
Okay. So why couldn't we use that water then for irrigation?
Just as I described to the board, the expense associated with the infrastructure to distribute it. The second thing the study did before we even went down the RIB study, we looked at utilizing it on Navarre Beach, and there's not adequate green space that would consistently provide the capacity to discharge our effluent. Even on the hottest day, we still didn't have enough capacity, green space, and those sorts of things that we could distribute and treat. And that's all included in the study.
But we have so much park space, and then the beautification committee is working on more beautification projects. Perhaps that's something that we could accomplish, and it would make us look better as a community, and perhaps there would be some grant money that we could get for actually being environmentally friendly instead of discharging so much water into the sound. It's just something that I believe we should all look at. It might actually be a really great restore project that someone from the county needs to be writing.
Yeah, the wastewater sound discharge, eliminating it is on our list.
Well, what I saw was that Gulf Breeze was going to, the city of Gulf Breeze put in to take it and do their irrigation with it. That's
Yes.
what I've seen. I haven't seen anything that's going to help Navarre.
I understand.
Okay. Well, I'm just suggesting that might be a great project for the county to put in for restore funding for the citizens of Navarre.
Again, I have to go back to the reports that we conducted that said it wasn't feasible, there was not enough space. And when you begin to introduce irrigation to indigenous species plants, you get a lot of invasive species. And I don't think DEP is going to allow us to spray those conservation open space areas on Navarre Beach. But
Okay.
we'll check it.
All right, appreciate that. I'd also like to let the commissioners know that we've actually set our town hall meetings for when Joe Mazurkowicz with BJM Consulting, who did the feasibility study for incorporation. So the town hall meetings will be held on September 15th and 16th at 6:30 p.m. at the Navarre Conference Center, and everyone is invited. So it'll be Monday night and Tuesday night. Same material will be covered, and there will be a question and answer period too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning or good afternoon. It's been a long morning for you. Tim Cohane, I live at 1466 Homeport Drive on Navarre Beach. I've lived on Navarre Beach now for 17 years. And yes, my taxes are up to date. I know you gentlemen hear an awful lot about beach renourishment, and you're probably tired of hearing about it. So I just want to reinforce what everyone has said. You know, we know you care, but there's a perception sometimes of the residents of the beach that you really don't care. So I would just encourage you to please, the beach is so important to the economic future of Santa Rosa County. So whatever attention you can give, please do that. That was my comment. I do have a question, though. One is, it's about irrigation. Does anyone know how they do the irrigation on Pensacola Beach? Because it looks like a tropical oasis down there. How are they doing that? Okay.
From an ex-Santa Rosa Island Authority employee, it is reuse?
Pardon?
It is reuse from the wastewater.
It is reuse.
Yes.
And so where did they get the funds for that to
The Santa Rosa Island Authority, I
Okay.
assume, expended it, or ECUA, one of the two.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else come before the board? We are adjourned.